In the 9th century, the land we now call Norway was not a single kingdom. It was a fractured mosaic of petty chieftains and warring jarls, a wild coast of fjords and mountains where power belonged to the man with the strongest sword arm. But from this chaos, one man would rise, a man driven by ambition, love, and a truly legendary vow. This is the story of Harald Fairhair, the Viking king who refused to cut his hair until he had forged Norway into a single, unified realm. Our story begins around the year 850. Norway is a patchwork of small, independent kingdoms. Life is harsh, and loyalty rarely extends beyond your own village or fjord. To even imagine a single ruler for this entire rugged coastline was borderline madness. In the south, in a small kingdom called Vestfold, a young boy named Harald came to power after his father, Halfdan the Black, met an unfortunate end, falling through the ice of a frozen lake. Harald was only 10 years old, but he inherited his father's ambition. He saw the constant raiding and infighting among the jarls not just as a way of life, but as a weakness. But what turns a young chieftain into a nation builder? According to the sagas, the most famous of which were written down centuries later by the Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson, the catalyst wasn't a battle, it was a woman. Her name was Gyda Eiríksdóttir, the daughter of a neighboring king. Harald, smitten, sent messengers to woo her. But Gyda was as ambitious as she was beautiful. She sent the messengers back with a bold, almost insulting refusal. "I will not waste my maidenhood on a king who rules over a few scattered districts. I marvel that there is no king who will make himself master of all Norway." Imagine the audacity. She wouldn't marry Harald because he wasn't powerful enough. She wanted to be the queen of a united Norway, not just some petty kingdom. For any other Viking chieftain, this would have been a grave insult, likely answered with fire and steel. But for Harald, it was an epiphany. Gyda hadn't just rejected him. She had shown him his destiny. In that moment, Harald made a legendary vow. He swore an oath to the gods that he would not cut or comb his wild blonde hair until he had conquered all of Norway and could claim Gyda as his queen. From that day on, he was known as Harald Lufa, Harald Shockhead or Tanglehair. It was a visible symbol of his unbreakable will, a constant reminder of the monumental task he had set for himself. And so, the wars began. For 10 long years, Harald waged a relentless campaign. This wasn't just random raiding, it was a systematic conquest. He moved north from his stronghold in Vestfold, challenging jarl after jarl, chieftain after chieftain. His strategy was brutal but effective. He offered the local rulers a choice: submit to his rule, become his vassals and pay taxes, or face him in battle and lose everything, their lands, their titles, and often their lives. Many, seeing the size of his growing army, bent the knee. But many more did not. The sagas tell of countless battles, but his campaign culminated in a single decisive confrontation around the year 872. The final holdouts, a powerful coalition of jarls from the west coast, Iceland, and the Scottish Isles, gathered their fleets to crush the upstart king once and for all. The stage was set for the legendary Battle of Hafrsfjord. This was the ultimate showdown. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of ships clashed in the narrow fjord. The noise must have been deafening, the splintering of wood, the clash of steel, the screams of the dying. Harald, leading from his own longship, fought like a man possessed. This was the final test of his vow. After a fierce and bloody struggle, Harald's forces were victorious. The resistance was broken. The last kings and jarls who opposed him were either dead or in exile. With his enemies vanquished, Harold had finally done the impossible. He was the sole ruler of Norway. And what of his vow? True to his word, he sent for Gyda, who now accepted his proposal. After their wedding, he finally had his tangled hair cut and combed by his friend, Jarl Rognvald. And from that moment on, he was no longer Harold Tanglehair. He was Harold Fairhair. But uniting a country is one thing, governing it is another. Harold established a system of jarls who answered directly to him, collecting taxes and administering his law. He confiscated the lands of his defeated enemies, creating a powerful royal estate that would fund his kingdom. But his rule was not without controversy. His high-handed rule and heavy taxes caused resentment. Many Vikings who valued their freedom above all else refused to live under a single king's authority. Where did they go? They packed their longships and sailed west, becoming the first settlers of a new, uninhabited land they called Iceland. So in a strange twist of fate, the very act of unifying Norway directly led to the founding of another nation.